Now let's take a look at how Portland's first ever ranked choice voting election went. Yesterday, the Oregonian published an in-depth story on it, and we think it's worth your time. The story comes from politics reporters Shane Dixon Kavanaugh and Mark Friesen. The headline says it all. Ranked choice debut causes voter engagement to crater. 1 in 5 who cast ballots chose no one for city council. Well, that's a pretty stark review of a historic first. After all, ranked choice voting was sold as a way to increase the participation of many in our city, especially people who are overlooked or ignored. But in fact, it did not do that. And it won't find these numbers from the county, by the way. They may not report them for another month or so. So instead of waiting, the Oregonian did its own math. And as you saw with the headline, the results were quite revealing.
We're looking at the total number of ballots cast by voters in Portland, total. And then we look at what the gap is between those votes cast and how many people voted in a city council race. And so citywide, 20% of all Portland voters who voted last week did not vote for a city council candidate. And in District 1, like we said, it was very high, 29%. But, you know, even in high voter participation areas like North and Northeast Portland, the West Side, and Southeast Portland, I mean, I think those were 18%, 17%, and 17%.
Here's a reminder of those new districts that Shane talked about. District 1 is east of I-205, 2 is north and northeast Portland, 3 is much of southeast, and 4 is west of the Willamette River and a few neighborhoods of southeast as well. So he's saying the citywide average was 20% of voters who turned in their ballots skipped the ranked choice section for city council. It was highest in East Portland, 29% of people skipping over that section completely. And that's only slightly ironic because this charter change with ranked choice was touted as finally giving East Portlanders a voice on council. But nearly 1 in 3 of those folks did not bother to vote for anyone on the council. Now, it's not unusual for folks to skip some parts of their ballot, but that many? That's unheard of here. For example, Shane says 4 years ago, the number who skipped the mayor's race but voted for other things on the ballot, that was just 6%.
And I did a bunch of reporting on ranked choice voting in the United States and how it's played out in other jurisdictions, not talking to necessarily advocates or proponents, but to academics who study this and have done the studies and research. And there has been a number of studies and research that has shown that ranked choice voting contests, especially when you're doing it for the first time, because of the sort of higher demand that it places on voters, it makes it more difficult. And so some people will choose not to engage. These studies have also found that it tends to have, perhaps unsurprisingly, a disproportionate impact on lower income voters and voters from more historically underrepresented areas and communities.
And when you say impact, you mean they're the ones who don't vote?
Yeah, so there's the hope and the promise that ranked choice voting offers potentially is that it will create greater civic engagement and also get folks who have not traditionally participated in these types of elections to have a reason to participate. But what we're sort of going to be wrestling with here is, while we want to see more folks who don't normally turn out for these types of elections to be voting, we're also seeing that ranked choice voting, at least in the first go-around, was depressing the votes in those particular areas and communities. Potentially. I mean, I don't want to, claim correlation or causation here, but we're just sort of highlighting that our debut with ranked choice voting did seem to have a pretty significant impact on voter participation in our mayor and city council races.
How about that? Shane says he's curious now to look into what happened over the last 2 years with voter education. There was a fair amount of money and a lot of time and effort put into educating voters, and a significant number of people still did not take part. There are all sorts of other interesting tidbits and data that Shane and the team boiled down for their article. You can read it all on OregonLive.com. It is behind a paywall, but you should pay for it. It's well worth it.